So we're really excited to have the legal experts here on the panel and some of the experts in the NFT world to really dive in and talk about how NFTs are changing the world. We do have on our panel a very diverse representatives, which I'm really excited about. So we have Sarah and Yassan, who are experts from Latin America, to talk a little bit more about the supply chain logistics approach towards Web3, as well as the political approach towards NFT communities. We have Meet George Franco, an expert in the field of non-fungible tokens and legal professional who has a keen interest in ownership rights and legal frameworks of digital currency with years of experience in the legal industry. And we also have Meet Ravi, who is here and ready to share insights on a truly novel and largely uncharted regulatory terrain from the perspective of the EU economy. So sit back and relax, and let's enjoy some of the different perspectives from today's. So just to start a little bit, this entire panel is speaking at personal capacity, and views expressed do not constitute the views of our employers. So maybe, don't tell my employer I'm here. So yeah, my name is Yana, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about the...
Yana, before we go forward, could I just throw a question out there to add a feedback loop, to add a feedback loop back to the discussion? So by a show of hands, how many of us think that the NFT purchases are under 50% with retail and over? So how many of us, under 50% or above 50% are the retail purchases in the NFT market?
Under.
You think it's under retail? How many of you think it's between 50 and 75% retail purchases of all NFTs? We got one hand. How many of you think it's above 75% retail? All right, we got one hand. So two people got it right. Yeah, so it is 81% retail. And that's a significant portion, if you can imagine that. But we'll see how this interplays with NFT custodianship in a moment, and in terms of a worldwide global perspective as well. But Yana,
Oh yeah, thank you, Ram, for this amazing audience engagement. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit more, to take it away from the financial system, but it's something that will largely impact how we regulate NFTs in the banking system in the future. I was more excited to talk towards data privacy issues. So the NFTs taking the world by a storm, a sudden storm, where not everybody was sure how to regulate the privacy features of NFTs. So here we have secret NFTs, which have private metadata ownership, which kind of shields the collectors' identities and allow the creators to actually track who able to view their works and who are able to track their identities. One significant challenge that NFTs world is currently facing is their public nature. So currently, all NFTs are public, which means you could see their metadata, you could link and trace through the wallet addresses. You can link individuals' identity, which could be a huge problem. It is more of a problem for tokens and coins, but since the NFTs are in nature of non-fungible and unique artworks, the ownership rights it is a crucial concern to make sure that our wallet addresses are not traceable to our identities and some of the more sensitive information. So firstly, secret NFTs can protect collectors' identities by keeping their wallet address secret. This feature is crucial for higher value NFTs due to their unique nature. And with private ownership, NFT owners can still show off their NFT collections while keeping their personal information private, which is a huge plus. And secondly, secret NFTs give creators true ownership of their work. So creators can use the private metadata feature to control who can access their work. They can display their work publicly, but only those who have paid for the NFT can access the high-quality version, which serves kind of as an entry barrier and a huge protection. And thirdly, secret NFTs open up a world of creative possibilities. So with privacy features, creators can incorporate surprises and hidden elements into their NFTs. For instance, they can create the gaming quests with hidden loot boxes, poker games where no one can use chain analysis to gain an advantage, and as well the artworks that reveal themselves over a period of time. So it's important that in the future we think about more ways of shielding our identities, given that over time that NFTs get introduced into financial sectors and legal sectors, there's a lot of sensitive data that's going to be stored into the NFTs. So therefore, we need to make sure we are advocating strongly for the privacy features in the future. And so moving on a little bit towards the financial sector, we do have some of the experts here who are able to talk a little bit more about that. So Sarah, could you tell us a little bit more about how NFTs can transform the management of assets for banks, and what are the main implications of it?
Sure, thank you, Yana. So, one of my motivations to being in this panel is that I'm also an artist, but I am also in the international relations field. So for me, it was very interesting the mix between DeFi and NFTs, because and being a Latin American girl also shaped my perspective in this topic, because I'm from Colombia. And for example, last year we have like a huge migration wave from Venezuela. So we have a lot of unbanked people who were trying to access to the financial system, but they were not able to do it because they were not regulated. They were like without their citizenship. So they start to ask for loans through crypto spaces. And NFTs start appearing in like in this subject. So I found very interesting that they start talking about democratization of NFTs and assets. So what's that? Is for example, right now you can buy a CryptoPunk, for example, and fractionalize that NFT. So these create a bigger democratization for assets, because right now you don't need to have, like, I don't know, for example, $1 million to buy an NFT, but you can have just like, for example, $3,000 and buy just a fraction of this NFT. With the fraction of the NFT, you now can access to debt collateralization. Sorry. So if you are the borrower, you can collateralize your debt with an NFT. So this is very important, especially in economy, because banks, they play a huge role in, for example, in a country, you have like the central bank. So the central bank can establish like the monetary offer of the country. After that, you have like the private banks that with credit, they establish also the monetary offer. But right now with NFTs, we have like a third wing in which we as citizens can also modify and alter the monetary offer right now in the market through these NFTs selling and democratization. So we're going to see like a huge impact in more people that were unbanked entering, especially the DeFi is seen with debt collateralization and accessing to more assets that were like unthinkable in one time. So for example, and a lot of people in Latin America, they never think that they will be able to have an NFT, thinking not only NFTs as, for example, PFPs, but like a house, for example, like in real estate. But now, right now, they can do it, and they can access also to loans and debt. So answering the question, like how it's going to impact, is like creating a more democratic finance system. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, coming from Latin America as well. My name is Mac Bobo. You guys can find me on Twitter, hosting spaces all the time. And not everything is as nice. There's a lot of corruptions, and this is one of the reasons this is very important, right? I think democratizations of property registers could be really amazing, especially in these countries that are going, but also the law landscape, it's very, very complex, and it's going to be very, very different, especially when you have nations like Costa Rica, like Panama, which are 5 million nation countries. Talking a little bit more about this, there has been a lot of efforts in Latin America. You have Mercado Libre, which is like an eBay equivalent here in America, that is already selling properties, and they are taking the payment with cryptocurrencies. But at this time, you also have companies like Property, which is already selling real estate here in the United States through all their legal loopholes. And they already, I had the chance to host them, so they're already developing all these DeFi protocols in order to be able to compete with the really antique systems that exist in Latin America. A lot of people do not see other developing nations, but over there, NFTs can really function as identifiers. You can really make them function within a notary's office, and that's where you're going to prevent a double sale, which is one of the main problems that our country has, which is the corruption as well in notaries. And there has been efforts already, especially in Colombia with XRP chain, where the government was trying to transfer all the property deeds towards a blockchain as they trusted it more than their antique and dinosaur-y systems, right? So with this being said, this also opens up a really big panorama, especially when you consider that NFTs have been used kind of like a crowdfunding for many failed businesses and failed communities as well. But at this time, I think that a lot of the developing nations are also going to be pushing towards this tool in order to generate all these infrastructures that are being needed. And when you go towards regulation, you're going to be finding a very diverse panorama. And with this, I think we're going to be going with Jorge, that he's the expert on the legal side. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You're too kind. I guess the biggest question that's presented ultimately when, from Latin to now the US, is what are the common mistakes that crypto companies make when planning to launch an ICO or raise funds for their blockchain projects? So I sort of narrowed it down. Excuse me, I just learned how to vape. I sort of narrowed it down to 5 points that common mistakes here. And it is highly recommended that you do speak with a legal professional or an attorney, sort of similar to what that gentleman's t-shirt says over there in the back. Talk is cheap until you speak to an attorney. I think he's talking right now. But excuse me, if you could just stand up and show everyone your shirt. I love what it says, talk is cheap. Yeah, I'm a lawyer too. Until you hire a lawyer. Yeah, so hence why you need to hire a lawyer. No, but the 5 most common mistakes are ultimately, initially, these companies or entrepreneurs, they fail to identify any potential risks or compliance matters. So number 1 would be initially an audit that needs to be performed on your ICO. Secondly is the drafting of white papers. And I don't know if you guys know, but the white papers are similar in nature to a prospectus, what is called for an initial public offering. And ultimately, with a prospectus, that contains information, Depression-era regulations, for the investor to understand at a modicum, what they're going to be investing in. For instance, biographies of who the management company is, financial statements, and things like that. And so it is recommended that ultimately the white papers do conform in similar nature to what the prospectus would be. Thirdly, would be seeking an attorney for advice on the KYC AML laws. Those are a big one. Nowadays in the news today, we hear of Coinbase, we hear of we hear of all these other crypto companies that are currently under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission just simply because they fail to acknowledge the AML laws, the KYC laws. So there, with respect to the legal profession, it always is recommended to seek help there. And then fourthly, to review marketing materials to ensure compliance with advertising laws. We see this all the time. We see Tom Brady, we see Kim Kardashian, Cristiano Ronaldo running rampant around here, advertising willy-nilly, ultimately to be slapped 6 months later with some sort of prosecution from the SEC saying, hey, there's a need to conform with the already existing laws. Oftentimes, there is this belief that there isn't a need to have to comply, but the SEC has defined a security as, quote, anything that is offered and sold as investment opportunities with the expectation of profits derived from the efforts of others. And so that's the definition that they're using right now to go after all these other crypto companies in the field right now and celebs. And then lastly, with respect to that, it is the last and final point is just assisting with the preparation and filing of regulatory applications that are often overlooked. So hence, those are the 5 common mistakes with respect to the US ICO. Now, I believe that Yana had a question with respect to the EU side of things.
Oh, yeah. As I mentioned, conveniently, we do have representatives from different parts of the world. I'm glad George talked to us a little bit about what to avoid. Because I remember there was this NPR segment about a turtle that was 87 years old. And it was a little bit too late to realize that it wants to secure some of the future, leave a family behind. I believe that turtle's name was Dill or something. So 87 years later, they realized that they need to kind of learn how to secure something. So maybe that's some of us who are just learning about NFTs, and we don't want to be too late to know that we need to go through certain rules and regulations. But Ram, given that you've traveled all the way from Germany here, what's the future of NFT custodianships in 2030?
Yeah, that's a good question, Yana. So keeps me up at night. That question. No, but just to take the baton on from George, he kind of mentioned how there's been this crypto winter, and to add to that, all of these multiple scandals in the news, right? So it doesn't really help. The question is, how do we get some of the regulated entities involved? I think that's something which could turn the tide over here. And this is also the topic on mainstream adoption of NFT custodianship. And once that happens, I think you would see a stark difference in where things are. So let me give you an analogy. So if I could put you in a time machine and take you back to the start of the 21st century, and then everyone knew electric cars were going to be a thing. It was inevitable. But then the infrastructure just didn't exist. Whereas you fast forward now, and then you have it in your supermarkets, you have it everywhere. And coming from, well, where I live right now in Germany and America, I think it's fantastic, the infrastructure. The same way, I think, we've had the first wave of retail customers. For those of you who came in late, we kind of did a survey in the room, we kind of did a survey in the room, and then we figured out that 81% of all NFT purchases are retail. So that gives you an indication of where things stand. So when you think of this, you can really tell that the first people who've come into this picture are willing to ride the wave. But whereas I think for the remaining people to come in, the laggards of the show to say, for these guys, you really need your everyday bank, your everyday financial institution to be able to offer NFT custodianship. That way, you have in one big financial picture your deposit account, your stocks, and also your NFT worth, right? And then you're able to then play around with it, collateralize, and work on add to the solutions on top of that. So I think that's an interesting point. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't want to keep pointing you insomnia, but another question that might keep you up at night would be with the NFT. How do you think the NFT custodianships unlock the potential of mass adoption?
Yeah, exactly. So just to continue where I left off, so we saw that 81% are retail. Another fun fact is that a lot of the current offerings tend towards crypto custody rather than NFT custody at the moment when you look at more traditional financial institutions. So in Europe, you have the first set of examples cropping up because there's regulatory certainty there. So Switzerland, you see a few banks starting to provide NFT custodianship. You're able to have this one big financial picture I spoke about. I think that's super crucial to mainstream adoption, Yana, because these are laggards who are willing to not ride the wave. They want that regulatory certainty, right? And then on the other hand, you have recently a survey was conducted, and one of the biggest pain points was with retail customers was regulation, trust, and security. And then when you dig deep into this, it's that they just don't. I think someone said it earlier before. Bill from Buffalo doesn't know how to handle his NFT custodianship, and then yeah. So your current wallet options are third-party custody, and then you have your self-custody. But then I think you need this other option where you have your mainstream institutions to really step into the picture over here. Yeah. So just to sum up where things stand, I think that could change the game over here, but. It's a matter of time. In Switzerland, you see them being the leaders, and then you see Germany. You have more of a licensing and authorization roadmap coming up. In America, I think there's still a lot of regulatory uncertainty, which is leading to mainstream institutions not coming into the picture. This has to change, and I think this will play a major role. And like we discussed, it's inevitable, but the question is when. And I think it would be nice to see the U.S. regulators step up the game as well to what EU is working on. Yeah, apart from that, I think thank you to all the co-panelists and the organizers for this event. And it's a pleasure. We'll be around the corner if you want to go down the rabbit hole of NFT custodianship with me. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, so we just wanted to thank from the bottom of our heart to everybody. And if you have any questions, also please reach out to us. We won't keep you up at night, but we'll answer all of your questions.
Thank you.